So, you can dual wield hand crossbows in D&D now. Did you know that? You probably did, but the question is, which class would be best suited to take advantage of such a weapon setup? The answer might surprise you. Welcome to D4. Hey everybody, so here at D4, each week I take a deep dive into character builds for my favorite role-playing games. I like to crunch numbers about them, I like to theorycraft about them, not so that I can tell you like the definitive right way or the best way to play a character, but to explore one potential way to build something in the hopes of creating a character that's both really fun, but also really powerful to play. So if you also enjoy creating characters for your favorite role-playing games, or if you're just interested in theory crafting, or if you're looking for tips or ideas on how to build something that you're thinking about playing, or if you're just looking for some nice D&D themed ASMR, then welcome home. This is where you belong, and I'm really glad you're here, so thanks for watching. My name's Colby. Okay, let's talk about crossbows. Specifically, hand crossbows. Under 2014 rules, D&D 5e, the hand crossbow was considered by many to be the best weapon in the game. Why is that, some of you may ask? Well, because in the old rules, the sharpshooter feat used to give you a +10 to damage with ranged weapons at the cost of a -5 to hit, right? But thanks to the archery fighting styles +2 to hit with ranged weapons, you could do more to counteract that like power attack move, something you could also get with heavy weapons and Great Weapon Master, better than you could with other weapons, right? Combined with the crossbow expert feat, which essentially let you make 3 attacks with a single hand crossbow if you had extra attack, and suddenly you've got the ability to put out a lot of damage from range with a fairly surmountable to-hit penalty. And I mean, yeah, for these reasons, almost every single ranged weapon using build I did under the 2014 rules involved the hand crossbow. There were exceptions, of course, but it was by far my most used ranged weapon in builds, no question. But then 2024 and 5.5 came along, and ranged weapons in general, and hand crossbows especially, I think, got nerfed pretty hard. Primarily because, while Great Weapon Master lost its -5 to hit, +10 to damage feature, it still does extra damage, and now has become usable with all heavy weapons, even, longbows and heavy crossbows. By contrast, the Sharpshooter feat also lost its -5 to hit plus damage component, but didn't get the add your proficiency bonus in damage addition that the Great Weapon Master feat did, right? And so now, if your ranged weapon isn't heavy, you can't take advantage of that extra damage. And hand crossbow lovers the world over mourned. That said, we did get one little silver lining in 5.5, and it's that the crossbow expert feat kinda got some love. It sorta got nerfed a little bit too, but basically, while you used to be able to make attack action attacks and then a bonus action attack with the same hand crossbow, now you can load ammo into crossbows even if you lack a free hand thanks to this feat. And since hand crossbows have the light property, once we get the feat, we can actually dual wield hand crossbows now, even if they're not repeating weapons a la the Artificer Infusion, right? And it's kind of a big fantasy for a lot of people, myself included. Finally, we can port over our favorite BG3 ranged weapon builds, right? Right? Maybe not, since thieves and swords bards aren't OP in D&D. Take a drink. And no, we can't still be a 2-gun toting pistolero, because pistols aren't light weapons, but this is kind of the medieval equivalent of that, right? And Crossbow Expert got some additional love as well. It's a half feat now, didn't used to be, that's pretty awesome, and it essentially gives you the 2-weapon fighting style for hand crossbows. If you're making that bonus action like offhand attack that light weapons grant, you can add the damage from your dexterity modifier to the bonus action attack, freeing up a fighting style for us if we were to get one. And so, yes, ever since this change happened for the 2024 rules, I've had dual-wielding hand crossbow build on my to-do list. But every time I tried to build it, stuff got in the way. Other ranged builds just did more damage, whether via ranged weapons or thrown weapons. And I've done multiple of each, right? I did one build with a hand crossbow with 5.5 rules, but it ended up being more of a swashbuckler musketeer kind of character that used a hand crossbow in one hand and a sword in the other, the blade and bow right up there, which was fun and worked well. But yeah, today I'm sick of putting it off. It's time to commit to this concept of a high fantasy, not gunslinger, but bolt slinger, bowslinger, I guess. Even if it might not do the most damage, and to be fair, I'm not sure any ranged weapon user in 5.5 will ever be the most damage, and I'm okay with that. Being a ranged weapon user comes with other big benefits, like being able to more easily pick your targets and being able to stay alive more easily than melee combatants generally can, I think. We probably should sacrifice a little damage, considering. But could we commit to the concept and still make the damage at least decent? I certainly hope so. The question is, which class would get the most out of the concept? Who is going to let us stretch that damage as best we can? The Ranger? You might think they'd make the hardest hitting ranged weapon users, but alas, I think you'd be mistaken. Rogue? Sneak attack is nice, but it doesn't scale quite fast enough for them to keep up, I don't think. Fighter? They're good, very good. Extra feats, more attacks eventually, but surprisingly, perhaps, and happily, I think, the answer for me, at least, is actually the Paladin. Yeah, I know. I'm surprised too. But for a variety of reasons, I think Pallies make the best bowslingers in D&D 5.5. And you know what? That's freaking awesome, because I've had ranged Paladin on my to-do list literally since I started this channel 5 years ago, and I have never actually built one. Well, okay, that's not exactly true. I did a pretty cool thrown weapon pally build a few months ago, the Chuckadin, which ended up being quite potent, actually, but I've never, ever committed to a true ranged weapon using Paladin. Mostly because Smite, right? It's gotta be melee, or a melee weapon at least, and it feels bad to miss out on that iconic class feature, but today, I'm letting go. I'm going all in, because hey, Paladins bring so much more to the table than just smites, right? They can make fantastic supporty, tanky damage dealers, and, for my money, make the best dual wielders of hand crossbows in D&D right now. So we're doing it. And you know what? Conceptually, heck yeah. Make my, double shooter character a lawman or lawwoman, right? I don't need to be an outlaw. I'll be the sheriff. And so, I proudly present D&D Build number 233, the Marksman, the fastest bow in Faerun, the Pew Pew Paladin, the Bolt Whisperer, the CIA Agent, the Guided Bolt. That's pretty clever, actually. The Straight Shooter, Pally the Kid. I kind of like that, actually. Thanks, as always, to everyone in the Discord server for your fantastic suggestions. I'm honestly having a really hard time deciding what to call this one, so I think for the first time ever, I'm gonna let you all decide. YouTube now allows me to do A/B testing for video titles as well as thumbnails, so I'm gonna give it 2 titles, and we'll see which one gets the most clicks. Let's try the Bowslinger and the Sheriff of Faerun. May the best title win. Huge thanks to my good friend Randall Hampton for the fantastic artwork that he put together for the build this week. He always does this. I love what he comes up with. If you'd be interested in following him to check out the other stuff that he does, or maybe even to try and commission him to create some art for your character or even your entire party, I'll put links in the video description as always on how to do so. But first, I want to celebrate with you guys a brand new sponsor today. Odyssey of the Dragon Lords Remastered Edition by Arcanum Worlds. Alright, longtime players and fans of third-party 5e content will probably recognize Odyssey of the Dragon Lords. It originally came out in 2019 and was a huge success, selling thousands and thousands of copies. Well, they are updating it, they're remastering it and adding a ton of new content for it, and it's in Kickstarter right now at the time of this recording. It's already 9 times over its funding goal. People are super excited about it for good reason, and you should be too. Let me tell you why. Odyssey of the Dragon Lords is a deluxe 5e campaign created by Jesse Skye and James Olin, who are ex-BioWare, my favorite video game studio of all time, creative directors for Baldur's Gate, for Dragon Age Origins, and Star Wars Old Republic, 3 of my favorite video games of all time. That's an incredible track record. This updated edition is adding over 200 pages of new content, lore, quests, monsters, new maps, gorgeous art, as you are seeing, and integration with the 2024 5e rules, so it's 5.5 compatible. They're dividing the original Odyssey of the Dragonlords into 2 books here. First, The Great Labors is an almost 300-page introductory adventure set in the ancient Greece-inspired world of Thylia and is for character levels 1 through 6. But then Odyssey of the Dragonlords is a 400-plus page adventure that continues the story set in Thylia for characters levels 6 through 20. In addition, there are 2 more books available. Reavers of Oath and Ruin is over 200 pages, and it's also an introductory adventure, but it's set in the Norse-inspired world of Grimnir. This epic tale is going to serve as a prelude to Odyssey of the Dragonlord, so returning players will be especially interested in this as it gives you like a fresh path into the saga, right? And it's also great for those who love Norse mythology, like me. But yeah, it's also designed for character levels 1 through 6. And then finally, they've got the Hero's Handbook, which is probably the book that I'm most interested in as it introduces a boatload of new player options. Over 24 new subclasses like the Dragon Knight Fighter, Circle of the Worm Druid, those sound freaking awesome. Over 10 new species like the Nymph, the Medusa, the Cyclops, the Siren, 8 backgrounds, new spells, and detailed information and lore on the worlds of Grimnir and Thylia. In the end, you guys, if you love third-party creators, epic storytelling, and like Baldur's Gate and Dragon Age, you're gonna love these books. So do yourself a favor and go back the Kickstarter. When you do, I would appreciate it if you would use the link that I'm putting in the video description and the pinned comment as always. And yeah, don't delay because at the time of this video release, there's only about 2 weeks left on the Kickstarter. And you don't wanna miss out on the awesome goodies that you can get by backing it now. And I mean, we want to help them reach their next stretch goal so we can unlock more content, right? Okay, huge thanks to Arcanum World. Really appreciate your guys' support. These books are going to be amazing. I know it. I can't wait to see them. Okay, let's get back to the build. All right. At level 1, for our starting class, we're just going to start Paladin. There is too much deliciousness at almost every level of Paladin, especially for the first 9 levels or so, right? And so I don't want to delay any of them, even for a single level in the name of some other feature. Though I would consider starting maybe with a single level in Sorcerer for the Constitution saving throw proficiency and a nice cantrip and spell selection, but nah, we're just going to go straight Pally for a while today so I can get where I want to be by level 6 and 9 especially. So when we first meet our champion, yeah, I envision them as being dedicated to upholding like the law of the land, interested perhaps in swearing an oath of the crown or devotion or something. But I think our story might end up taking us in a different direction before too long. As for our species, I'm gonna say let's go elf, and I'm sure you can guess my main motivation for doing so. It's because I freaking love playing elves, and I'm not ashamed to say it. But also, yeah, elven accuracy. But it is a feat that we're not gonna be picking up until a little bit later. So if you're stopping this character, like if the campaign ends, midway through tier 2 or earlier, or sure, if you can't, or you don't want to play with older feats, or you just want to be a different species for whatever reason, I strongly suggest that you do that. You'll be fine. As for our lineage, I'd be prone to go Wood Elf for this build, I think. I love having more move speed and free castings of Longstrider and Pass Without Trace, personally. But you could go Drow or High Elf instead if you wanted, or sure, maybe better yet, Eladrin or Shadar-kai. Take your favorite option there. For our background, I'm gonna say let's go with an old one or a custom one if you can, but criminal would work fine for the most part, and actually makes for a fun, like, former desperado turned deputy kind of vibe, right? And actually that might work out for us with some multi-classing that I plan on doing later, so yeah, maybe we hung on to some old contacts and or methods for finding out info we needed that wasn't exactly by the books. I suggest criminal mostly because I think I'd want the alert origin feat. We get an origin feat here at character creation, right? Alert is not exactly necessary to the build or anything, and if you wanted like a magic initiate feat or musician or lucky or tough or anything else, I think it'd be totally fine. Alert is great in that it lets you add your proficiency bonus to your initiative rolls and lets you swap initiative with a willing ally. And going first is a big deal in this game, probably bigger than I usually discuss. And it seems like, being a quick draw, the first one to draw and shoot is something that this character would prioritize and be good at, yeah? So it fits thematically too. As for our ability scores, I assume that we're going the point buy method as always and say let's do a 15 dexterity, a +2 there, a 15 charisma, and a +1 a 12 constitution, and then a 13 strength. Criminal would make us take that +1 in constitution instead of charisma, and arguably going 14 con, 14 charisma would be just as good, maybe better. I just hate having a mediocre charisma on my pallies. And I would hate it even more for the multi-classing that I plan on doing later. So yeah, I think I would be willing to suffer with that 12 constitution if it meant I could get to the 16 charisma personally. And I don't mind being a little squishy. We're a ranged character. We should have an okay time staying relatively safe compared to melee characters at least. Despite our mid-range at best that like hand crossbows offer, remember their normal range is only 30 feet. 120 feet if you wanted to take disadvantage on the attack, or if you could get the sharpshooter feat later, I guess. For our starting equipment, I'm going to say let's grab some scale mail and then 2 hand crossbows, but also probably a handful of daggers. Eventually we're going to want to use the 2 hand crossbows, right? But at first, thanks to the loading and ammunition properties of them, using 2 can be a little tricky. I suppose with some weapon juggling, we could technically like fire, holster, draw, fire a different crossbow and take advantage of the fact that they're both light, so we could do one with our action, one with our bonus action, right? But I think I'd just as soon stick to the 1-hand crossbow and then a dagger for now, since at Paladin 1 we get weapon masteries, and we could take the hand crossbow for 1, which has the Vex mastery, granting us advantage on the next attack we make against the enemy that we've hit with the crossbow, and then we could take dagger for the other, which has Nick, and is a finesse weapon, meaning we could use our dexterity to throw it, letting us stay at range, but, make that dagger thrown attack. It would normally take our bonus action, but, thanks to Nick, we could do it as part of our action. Freeing up our bonus action is worth giving up like 1 point of damage on average, right? A d6 to a d4. Especially if it means we don't have to get all weird about weapon juggling and can keep our bonus action free. And heck, maybe we could even smite with that dagger toss from time to time, right? It's a melee weapon. We'll get to dual wielding the hand crossbows as soon as we get the feat for it. Anyways, at Pally 1, we also get Lay on Hands, a fantastic healing feature that gives us 5 points per Pally level that we can use with a bonus action and a touch to heal 1 hit point for every point spent, or to cure poison for 5 points. Super efficient, really potent, and I guess I should probably say this now, I imagine I'll repeat it a few times. This character is going to make a really solid support character. If you wanted to, you could make them kind of a main support healer for your group whose primary job would be to buff and heal, but who could then lay down some decent ranged damage when there wasn't any buffing or healing to be done, right? They could also make a solid, secondary support character who focuses a little more on damage, but can support and buff when needed. That's kind of how I'm going to assume that we're building and playing them, but either way, Lay on Hands will be an important arrow in your quiver, or, bolt in your quiver, as the case may be. We also get Paladin spells here, and the ones I would prioritize would be Bless, for an amazing buff for 3 of your party members, letting them, maybe us, right, add a d4 to all attacks and saves. Super solid, and you might be concentrating on this for your entire career, honestly, and it wouldn't be a bad thing to do. I'd also love to have Cure Wounds for a backup heal when we're out of Lay on Hands points, but for damage, my priority would be Divine Favor. I know I joke about this a lot, but having just done that straight class Ranger build last week, I'm really just kind of in awe that Paladins, the other half-caster, right, in 5.5, got the concentration removed from Divine Favor, while Hunter's Mark continued to languish with all of its drawbacks, though they tried to encourage Rangers to use it even more. Honestly, it hurts my soul a little. But anyways, Divine Favor is awesome. We cast it as a bonus action, and it just adds a d4 of radiant damage to all of our weapon attacks for a minute. No transferring, no concentration, just extra damage per hit. As a first level spell, it's awesome, and we're going to be using it most of our career. At level 2, Paladins get a fighting style, and we're going to go with archery, of course, so that we can add a +2 to hit on all of our ranged weapon attacks. This wouldn't work for our dagger, though I suppose we could switch to darts if we wanted to use our bonus action to toss one. Darts don't have Nick, alas. But yeah, this build is going to be insanely accurate, and this fighting style is part of the reason why. And I kind of love that for this character. The damage that we do is never going to be topping the charts or anything, but we will be hitting just about everything that we aim at all of the time, and that is cool and fun, I think. We also at Pally 2 get the Paladin's Smite feature, and in the script I just wrote a little frowny face. Yeah, so even though Smite works with unarmed strikes now, like we built around in that One Punch Bard a couple of weeks ago, and we could Smite on a thrown weapon attack, alas, it has to be a melee weapon or unarmed strike in order to work, right? Ranged weapons need not apply. So sure, hang on to that dagger, I guess, if you feel like a little more damage would put the enemy down, especially if you're fighting fiends or undead, since you'd get a little extra damage. And that actually could be a fun character thing, I think. You're usually peppering them with bolts from your hand crossbows, but once in a while you pull out the holy hand grenade and lob it at your enemy for a bit of extra burst damage when you need it.
1, 2, 5. Freezer. 3.
Anyways, this feature lets us always have Divine Smite prepared and even cast it once per day for free, so sure, toss that grenade once in a while. At level 3, we get Channel Divinity first up, which just says that twice per day, and then just recovering one use on a short rest, we can channel the Divine for a couple of different things. By default, all pallies can use it for Divine Sense, which lets us detect undead, celestials, or fiends, but the main thing we will want it for, of course, is something that we get from our subclass, which for us is going to be, did you guess? Yeah, I think I want to go Oath of Vengeance here. It's so good. I think flavor-wise, I tend to prefer Devotion on my pallies, and for single weapon users, right, it's arguably stronger, but for dual wielders like us, yeah, it's pretty tough to beat Vengeance. So yeah, I think at this point in my character's career, if I were playing them, something has maybe happened that's making me consider, if not going rogue, then at least using my divine or lawful authority to hunt down perpetrators who have wronged me or mine, becoming perhaps a little too consumed with the idea of bringing the villain to justice. So one of the best things about the Vengeance Pally, of course, is their Vow of Enmity feature, which says that they can burn a use of Channel Divinity to just have advantage on all of their attacks for a whole minute. And now, no bonus action or action required. And when your initial target dies, you can just transfer it to somebody else. Again, no bonus action required. You know what? I think my favorite thing mechanically in D&D is buffs that don't require us to use our action or bonus action. Or maybe like the Dance Bard, who can give inspiration and make an unarmed strike at the same time. Anytime I get more power without having to sacrifice action economy, my little brain just lights up, I'll tell you. Now, I will say that thanks to the Vex weapon mastery, it's possible that you actually might just be fine with a different subclass here. Devotion could buff at least one of your crossbows with a big hit chance, and then you could maybe just rely on Vex to keep your advantage chain going after that. Glory or Ancients or heck, Oathbreaker or whatever else could thus let you get away with just kind of hoping that you can keep that advantage chain going without a Vow of Enmity. Vow of Enmity is nice because it's just kind of guaranteed, super reliable, and you can transfer it to another target, right? The thing with Vex is that it's going to grant you advantage on your next attack against that enemy if you hit them with the Vex weapon. But if they're dead and you're going to another one, well, you're not going to have advantage on them, right? And of course, if you miss, you're not going to have advantage on your next hit either. So yeah, the Vow of Enmity, the reliability of it, I just really like. It does suck feeling like you're kind of wasting your weapon mastery, right? Though of course you might be playing this character where you're having multiple combat encounters between short and long rests, in which case you wouldn't have Vow of Enmity every time, so it's not necessarily wasted in that case. I do wish that Pallies had a way to swap out weapon masteries like fighters kind of do, right? Or it's like you can use a different weapon mastery instead, right? But anyways, Vow of Enmity, awesome. Take a different subclass if you want, but another big reason I wanted to go Vengeance here was for the Oath spells, which Vengeance Pallies get, which are, for my money, the best of any Paladin subclass. At this level, we get Bane and Hunter's Mark for free, which, I mean, I guess we could use both Divine Favor and Hunter's Mark. It's just, yeah, that's a lot of bonus actions. We'll see if it makes sense when we crunch numbers. Bane is great too, though, as the anti-Bless, right? In some situations, you might be better off with that as opposed to Bless, especially if someone else in your party is already casting Bless. Speaking of people who bless you, or at least who bless me, anyways, quick shout out to my channel members and patrons. You guys are the blessed. I couldn't do what I do without you, and I'm so grateful for you, so thank you for your support. If you're not a member or a patron, I'd love it if you'd consider becoming one. There's a button down there that says join, or in the video description you can find a link to the Patreon where it'll explain kind of what that entails. I give all of my perks to all of my members and patrons who sign up at just like the silver level or higher. It's a couple of bucks a month, but I would just ask that you pay what you feel it's worth and what you think you can afford. Those perks include access to the library of write-ups that I do for each of my builds, so you can more easily recreate them yourself without rewatching the video or taking notes, right? Access to the community Discord server, and access to the live monthly Q&A hangout sessions that we do. If you can't or don't want to support the channel in this way, that's fine. Watching, liking, subscribing, all of those things are also great ways to support, so thanks. At level 4, we get our first general feat, and we pretty much have to go crossbow expert here, I think. It's the thing that lets us finally live out our dual-wielding, bolt-slinging fantasy, right? I already discussed it a bit in the preamble, but yeah, it's a super solid feat. It bumps our dexterity to 18, sweet. Lets us basically ignore both the loading and ammunition properties of crossbows so that we can fire more than one on our turn and load with our hands full. I'm not really sure how that works, like mechanically, if you've got your hands full and you're trying to reload your weapon. Maybe you've got like bolts on your forearm and you're chink chink, or like on your hips, right, or your thighs chink chink. I don't know. Hooray for fantasy that doesn't require a high level of adherence to the laws of physics. But yeah, we're not done yet. The feat also lets us not worry about making ranged attacks when an enemy is within 5 feet of us. No disadvantage in that case. Very nice. And lets us add our dexterity modifier to our offhand bonus action crossbow attack, like I've said. So just everything that a bolt action sheriff like ourselves could want. At level 5, we get extra attack. So we can now take 3 attacks on our turn, 2 with our action, 1 with our bonus action. We also get the Faithful Steed feature. And yeah, Pally just keeps adding tons of delicious like Western gunslinger flavor to this character, doesn't it? So we now always have the Find Steed spell prepared and can cast it once per day for free. So, okay, we're like the Lone Ranger, right? Hi-ho silver. Find Steed is great. It's a free mount, and even though it very specifically now is just a controlled mount, that's still awesome. As long as there's room on the battlefield to navigate, at least, you've now got 40 feet of speed when mounted, and that mount can disengage and move every turn, or dash every turn, which is going to be fantastic for our mid-range hand crossbow selves, right? Run up within range of the enemy, dash away. It's actually one of the reasons why I thought Pally's had an edge with this character concept, and we will especially appreciate this later. We also get second level spells here, and Vengeance Pallies get 2 bangers for free. Hold Person for some paralysis, and thus auto crits against humanoids, right? And Misty Step for free teleportation, which paladins don't usually get. Really nice. Beyond that, I would consider Aid to heal and buff the max HP of party members, Lesser Restoration to cure some conditions, Prayer of Healing frankly feels like a must-have spell when you can get it now. Only Pallies and Clerics can get it, but it's like a super cheap short rest and a heal, right, in 10 minutes. And I always love Warding Bond if you want to really lean into your calling to protect and serve. It's a fantastic tank and support spell to help keep a squishy ally safe. And speaking of keeping others safe, at level 6, yeah, we get one of the best features in all of D&D, Aura of Protection, which says that you and all of your friends within 10 feet now get a bonus to all of your saving throws equal to your charisma modifier. The main reason I really wanted to get a 16 charisma, right? This is so good. And it should hopefully be easy to maneuver yourself with your ranged attacks and your Wood Elf speed and or your mount, right? And don't forget, you've got a free casting of Longstrider, right? As if we went Wood Elf. You could use that on your mount if you wanted. But yeah, we should have a pretty easy time getting to where we want to be by the end of our turn to help protect our most vulnerable allies. But at level 6, it's time for our first damage report. So let's talk about what combat would ideally look like for us right now. On level 1, let's say we'd be casting Hunter's Mark with our bonus action and making 2 hand crossbow attacks against our chosen enemy. What? After all that whining? Flip table. I know. Here's the thing. If we assume that we have to transfer Hunter's Mark with our bonus action every other round, So like we'd cast it now on round 1 and then transfer it on round 3, right? And then we would use our bonus action on round 2 for Divine Favor. Then sure, you'd get a teeny bit more total damage on average over a 4-round combat encounter by doing that instead of just casting Divine Favor on round 1 and making 3 attacks every round after that. But the difference in the total average damage, 2 on average, right? So yeah, barely worth using Hunter's Mark. Not to mention, it's going to cost you a spell slot. You're going to have to worry about your concentration. Might not be worth it at all, depending on if you need your spell slots for other stuff, especially. But like in a boss fight where you might not be transferring that Hunter's Mark at all, sure. Or yeah, you could, of course, just concentrate on Bless instead. Your combat encounter might go more smoothly for your entire party if you do. We don't really need the extra D4 to our hit chance, frankly. And so assuming that we're prioritizing damage overall here, I will pass on Bless when I crunch the numbers, but keep it in mind. It might be the better option to open combat with and just ignore Hunter's Mark. Anyways, I'll assume Hunter's Mark on rounds 1 and 3, right? Divine Favor on round 2, and actually finally making all 3 attacks on round 4. You might think that's silly, so fine, just go Divine Favor, start firing. And we're not going to be using this tactic for long. But with those assumptions, at this level, in a combat encounter, averaged over 4 rounds, against enemies with a 10 AC, we would do 31 damage per round. And against a 15 AC, it would be 29 DPR. And not too surprisingly, I think that's okay, but not great. Compared to other DPR builds that I've done to date at this level, it's near the bottom of tier 3. So yeah, with that in mind, you might absolutely decide to just cast Bless on round 1, right? Benefit your entire party and take a hit to our own damage of what would be about 7 or 8 points less on average in the name of benefiting your entire party otherwise. I mean, turning just one of your barbarians attacks from a miss into a hit, thanks to Bless, would make up for the damage loss that we suffer personally, right? To say nothing of the benefit to everybody's saving throws, yeah? So yeah, this is the state of the hand crossbow in D&D today, but guess what? Someone with crazy high mobility who can heal, buff, and polish off wounded enemies from range doing 30-ish damage every round at level 6. This is pretty solid. And we've got some decent damage scaling coming up, so hold your horses. At level 7, as a Vengeance Paladin, we get Relentless Avenger, which is probably my least favorite Vengeance Pally feature for this build especially. It just says that if we hit with an opportunity attack, we reduce the enemy's speed to 0 and can then move up to half our speed without provoking opportunity attacks ourselves. As a ranged character, yeah, we're probably not getting much out of this all that often. Moving on. At level 8, we get another feat, and yeah, we're going to want Elven Accuracy. I hate not bumping my dexterity to 20 here, but this just does such nice things for our accuracy, right? And our crit chance. And as a reminder, it'll bump our dexterity to 19, and then says that when we make an attack with dexterity, charisma, intelligence, or wisdom, if we have advantage, we can basically roll 3 d20s instead of 2. Coupled with our archery fighting style, our crossbow bolts are essentially heat-seeking missiles now, and that's awesome, even if they're just kind of baby missiles. At level 9, we get Abjure Foes, which is a really solid control debuff option. It lets us use an action and a Channel Divinity charge to force enemies within 60 feet, but only a number of them up to our charisma modifier, to make a wisdom save or be frightened for a minute or until they take damage, and while frightened, they can only move or take an action or a bonus action. Solid potential there, and maybe especially worth using if we feel like we'll be able to rely on our Vex to keep advantage going, right? And so we're less worried about burning up those Channel Divinity charges. But the best part about level 9 for us is that we get 3rd level spells. And while Aura of Vitality is great for healing, especially between combat encounters, I think, and Dispel Magic and Revivify are especially worth having, I want to focus on 2 here. First up, Haste. It's one of the free ones that Vengeance Paladins get, and it is solid. It requires concentration and a whole action to cast, but thereafter it doubles our move speed, guess we don't need our steed anymore, increases our AC by 2, gives us advantage on dexterity saves, and gives us a whole another action on our turn, though we can only use it to make one attack if we choose to attack with that action. But the thing about Haste is, it especially shines when we're making really hard hitting attacks, right? As a hand crossbow user, that's not really us, unfortunately. it's still not a bad idea to consider. And the other benefits that it brings are nice too, though dropping concentration on it basically costs us our turn and our aura of protection, right? Since that turns off if we're incapacitated now in 5.5. So definitely a big drawback to haste. But yeah, I think if we wanted to commit to haste, I probably would have built this character a little differently. Grab Great Weapon Master at level 8 instead of Elven Accuracy and focus on making bigger, fewer, harder hitting attacks. In that scenario, haste does really nice things for the damage and has the benefit of leaving our bonus action open as well. I think for us, the spell we'd be better off concentrating on would be Spirit Shroud. It's a bonus action to cast, requires concentration, but then adds a d8 of cold or necrotic damage, our choice, to all of our attacks, and doesn't require us to use a bonus action to transfer it to a different target or anything, just like Divine Favor. It also prevents enemies from healing and can slow them down, but there is a big drawback to it for us, and it's that it only works if enemies are within 10 feet of us. I've seen people complain about me using this spell on other ranged builds in the comments, and I get it. It doesn't feel like much of a ranged build if you have to attack from 10 feet away, right? I will say this. If we're mounted and can move 80 feet on our turn, or 40 with a free disengage, or even if we can move 35 as a wood elf, 45 with Longstrider, I don't feel too bad about assuming that we can run up to within 10 feet, attack, and skirt away most of the time. And again, our normal range with hand crossbows was only 30 feet to begin with, so we had to kind of be close already. Sure, you could take the sharpshooter feat to avoid that, but that wouldn't come until character level 12. I'd say, if you don't like this tactic, no problem. Again, just go with haste. With hand crossbows, it's only worse by about 4 to 5 points of damage on average, but guess what? If you've got a great magic crossbow, something that adds damage to every attack you make with it, then haste is going to be very comparable, maybe the same, maybe better, depending on the weapon. So, working in a vacuum with an eye on the spreadsheet, Spirit Shroud comes out ahead, but you can play this how you want based on your weapons, based on what the battlefield looks like, and what your allies are doing, etc., etc. I like having options. Okay, at level 9, though, it is time for our next damage report. Since last check, we have increased our hit and crit chance thanks to Elven Accuracy, and swapped out Hunter's Mark for the vastly superior Spirit Shroud, or Haste, but I'll assume Spirit Shroud, as well as some nice utility, support, and control debuffing options too, of course. But now, on round 1, we would cast Spirit Shroud with our bonus action, close to within 10 feet, fire off a couple of rounds, and retreat. And on round 2, we do the same but with Divine Favor. It's still worth using for overall average damage, though. Of course, if you think 3 attacks would finish off an enemy on that second round, where 2 with Divine Favor wouldn't, right? You can forego Divine Favor, no problem. Rounds 3 and 4, though, then would be 3 fully buffed attacks. And under those assumptions, against enemies with a 10 armor class here, we would do 39 DPR on average, and against a 16, it would be almost the same, 38. And yeah, that's about a 25 to 30% increase, but compared to other DPR builds to date, it's still lagging behind most of them. Not all. And especially not at those hard-to-hit enemy ACs, right? But again, 9 levels of Paladin, 45 lay on hands points, Aura of Protection, heals, buffs, debuffs, and nearly guaranteed ranged damage with tons of mobility. Feels like a solid support or hybrid damage backup support, right? And I love it. So where do we go from here? Well, that depends on what you want at level 10. More Paladin levels are always nice. But most of the class and subclass features from here on out are of the support and or utility variety, though. We don't get anything out of the level 11 Radiant Strikes feature, for example, unfortunately, since that applies to melee attacks only. But still, if you wanted to lean in to that support aspect of the build, and maybe especially if you were relying on haste for concentration, staying Paladin wouldn't be a bad idea at all. But if you want to improve your damage, at this point, the best thing we could do would be to go with a full caster class so that we could more quickly scale our spell slots and thus upcast Spirit Shroud for better damage, since it would do 2d8 per hit as a 5th level spell and 3d8 as a 7th one, right? So for me, at this point in our hero's career, I think something is changing. Either they've grown frustrated by the law's inability to help them bring their quarry to justice, Maybe the villain was captured, but they were able to grease the right palms or find a loophole in the system that let them get away without punishment. Or maybe their rich, noble uncle refuses to issue a warrant for their arrest in the first place, right? We're getting frustrated. So we've decided to get off our high horse and resort to less clandestine methods and resources for capturing our perpetrator. Or perhaps, better yet, for me at least, I think, someone in charge of Her Majesty's Secret Service has noted our strong sense of loyalty and duty to the law, our efficacy in bringing criminals to justice, and our charismatic charm and wit, and has decided to make us an offer to become like a spy or a secret agent for the powers that be. Whatever your reasons, yes, we are taking bard levels now. And this is perfect because we're already kind of leaning into our support capabilities, right? This is just going to add even more support options and give us a nice healthy heaping of utility to boot. Oh, and damage, naturally. As a Bard 1, then, we first up get Bardic Inspiration, which says that Charisma modifier times per day, we can use a bonus action to inspire an ally so that in the next hour they can add our Inspiration die, a d6 for now, to any failed d20 test, potentially turning it into a success. Everyone loves Inspiration. Too bad we will greedily be hoarding them all to ourselves before long. Ha ha ha. Anyways, we also get first level Bard spells and cantrips here, and I'd just be sure to grab stuff that we couldn't get as a Paladin, right? Probably leaning into the support and utility stuff mostly, so Healing Word, Silvery Barbs, if you can get away with it, watch out for the mob, Sleep, Tasha's Hideous Laughter, etc., right? Have fun with it. At level 11, we would be a Bard 2, and that means we get Expertise so that we can double our proficiency bonus with 2 skills that we're proficient in. And I would just say pick your favorite here, PYF. I'd be tempted to go Perception at least, but you might prefer to lean into your newfound secret agent identity and grab Persuasion and Deception. Do what you think best. We also get Jack of all trades, so that we can add half of our proficiency bonus to any skill check we make where we're not already adding our proficiency bonus. Don't forget, at this level, thanks to multiclassing, we do get a 4th level spell slot now. At level 12, we would be a Bard 3, and that means we get our Bard subclass, our college, and yes, in case you hadn't guessed, I'm totally taking my favorite Bard subclass here, Whispers. It is so juicy and delicious. We get 2 cool features here as a Whispers Bard at this level. Words of Terror says if we spend 1 minute talking to a humanoid, we can force a wisdom save or cause them to be frightened of us or someone else of our choice, which is a lot of fun, potentially in social situations. I hope that your DM gives you some situations where you could use this once in a while. But then we get a nice mechanical bump in the form of Psychic Blades, which lets us spend a use of our Bardic Inspiration to add 2d6 psychic damage to a weapon attack that we make. Doesn't have to be melee, thankfully, though only once per round on our turn. We could use all the damage bumps that we can get, so I'll take it. We also get 2nd level Bard spells here, and again, I'm going to say PYF, as I often will from this point on. But again, yeah, focus on things that we couldn't really get before that are potentially really useful, like Knock, Invisibility, Detect Thoughts, Mirror Image, Suggestion, etc. At level 13, we would be a Bard 4, and we get another feat, and I'm going to make a few suggestions here. We still need to cap our dexterity, so let's make sure we get something that's going to give us a +1 to that for sure. Mage Slayer would be awesome to help us interrupt concentration on enemy casters and let us auto-succeed at a failed Intelligence, Wisdom, or Charisma saving throw once per short rest. Really great when you need it. That said, we do have Aura of Protection. Maybe I'd instead do something that I almost never suggest, and that would be to take a +1 to dexterity here and a +1 to charisma. That would leave us with a 17 charisma, but we'll make up for that with our next feat. I actually am kind of leaning that route, honestly, but I guess if we were really just going for damage overall, we'd take the Piercer feat so that we could re-roll our piercing weapon damage rolls and do a little bit more damage on a crit. It's not the worst thing ever. Or, yeah, of course, Sharpshooter is worth considering, but it kind of depends. How often are enemies benefiting from half or 3/4 cover at your table? If often, then this is sort of a must-have, right? More important than Elven Accuracy, even. Sharpshooter would also let us shoot at the weapon's long range without suffering disadvantage, like I've mentioned, so especially if you stuck with hand crossbows, but were concentrating on haste, this would be the way to go. In the end, do what you gotta do to get that dexterity to 20. I suppose I'll assume that we went Piercer in the name of the spreadsheet, and I mean, hey, re-rolling d6s, not the worst thing. And with Elven Accuracy and our higher crit chance, we will get a little more out of this feat than most builds, but again, do what you think is best here. Don't forget, thanks to multiclassing, we do get a 5th level spell slot now, and that's just in time for our next damage report. Since last check, the most important thing that we've done for our damage is get the ability to upcast Spirit Shroud at the 5th level so that it does 2d8 per hit. Beyond that, we've finally capped our dexterity at 20, theoretically added a little bump from the Piercer feat, and added 2d6 damage from Psychic Blades, 3 out of the 4 rounds of combat anyways, with a 16 charisma, right? And then of course just added lots of fantastic flavor and support and utility capability from having a bunch of bard levels, and more and better spell slots. But in a 4-round combat encounter here against a 10 AC, we would do 63 damage per round on average, and against a 17 AC, it would be 63 damage per round on average. Thank you, Elven Accuracy, and the archery fighting style. And yeah, this is better than a 50% increase since last check. Very nice. Compared to other DPR builds that I've done to date at this level, that's like top of tier 3, maybe bottom of tier 2 even, much better. And filled with tons of versatility, support, and utility to boot. I'm feeling pretty good about where we're at. So let's see what it looks like in the endgame. At level 14, we would be a Bard 5, and that means we get Font of Inspiration so that we can get our inspirations back on a short rest now, much appreciated. Those inspiration dice are d8s now as well, by the way, just in case you decide not to be a selfish bastard and actually inspire your allies once in a while. And yeah, of course, in-game, I think I probably would play this character like, hand out an inspiration before combat starts, maybe one other in battle if it looks like an ally really needs one, right? And use the other on a Psychic Blades, maybe especially if I land a crit, that sort of thing. But then we get the fantastic 3rd level Bard spells, so you can lay down some really nice control in the form of Fear or Hypnotic Pattern or Slow. But there's also Tiny Hut for some nice protective utility, Mass Healing Word if a bunch of allies are dropping like flies. Even Plant Growth can be a really solid snare against a bunch of enemies if you're in a place where there's plant life anyways. Have fun with them. PYF. Don't forget, Psychic Blades does get a bump here to 3d6 as well. At level 15, we would be a Bard 6. And as a Whispers Bard, we get Mantle of Whispers, which is cool and kind of creepy. It says that if a humanoid dies within 30 feet of us, we can use our reaction to capture their shadow. Let's see James Bond do that, huh? You use the shadow to make yourself look like the dead person for an hour, and even gain info that they would have shared like casually with an acquaintance. Alas, no government secrets or anything, but maybe you can get those secrets a little more easily now. Again, I sincerely hope you get to use this ability in game sometime, because I bet it would make for a fantastically intense session. If you've got a story about using this in-game with your Whispers Bard, actually, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Again, don't forget, thanks to multiclassing, 6th level spell slot now as well. At level 16, we would be a Bard 7, and that means we get Counter Charm, which allows us to use our reaction so that we or an ally can re-roll a failed save against Charmed or Frightened, this time with advantage though. And with Aura of Protection, who needs Mage Slayer? Don't at me, Chris. Oh, we also get 4th level Bard spells here, and there are lots of lovely ones. Dimension Door, Freedom of Movement, Greater Invisibility if we want to attack or cast spells but still stay invisible, right? Polymorph, BYF. Finally then, for us at level 17, we would be a Bard 8, which means we get our last feat that I will be discussing anyways. And again, I'm gonna say do what you gotta do, but this time to get that charisma to 18. If we went like +1 and +1 last time, then I would grab Warcaster here so that we can have advantage on concentration checks. And yeah, without Constitution saving throw proficiency on this build, we arguably should have done this a lot sooner. If you're concentrating on haste, I'd definitely prioritize it. I might lean a little too heavily on Aura of Protection, like assuming we'll be fine, right? But advantage would be nice. But hey, getting charisma to 18 means a +4 to all of our saves now. So we'd have a +6 now to our constitution saves. Not exactly foolproof, but not terrible. I don't mind playing high risk, high reward. Don't forget, we get a 7th level spell slot here, thanks to multiclassing just in time for our final damage report. Since last check, we've gained the ability to upcast Spirit Shroud to do 3d8 per hit if we wanted, gotten a little bump to our Psychic Blades, as well as the ability to use them one more time per combat encounter thanks to that Charisma bump, right? If we wanted. But beyond that, our power increases have all come in the form of better utility, support, and defenses, which are all really good things. Oh, one note. Thanks to how much damage every attack is doing now, we'd actually be better off letting go of Divine Favor finally. It's been good to us. But a single bonus action hand crossbow attack with Sharpshooter going would do about 22 damage on average. Much more on a crit, of course, while on the other hand, using that bonus action to just add 1d4 to every hit from round 2 on would only add about 20 damage on average, so yeah. Let's do a little more damage earlier on in the encounter and overall on average, right? By letting go of a Divine Favor and just firing 3 times per round from round 2 on. Anyways, with these assumptions, against an enemy with a 10 AC on average, we would now do 83 DPR, and against an 18 AC, it would be 82 damage per round. And that's another 30% jump or so, and compared to other DPR builds to date at this level, that lands us in about the same place as last time. Top of tier 3, bottom of tier 2. So, let's get into some final thoughts, shall we? The tier score for this build, if you take the damage that they do against every armor class at each of the 4 damage reports and just average it into one big number, we end up with a 51. And that puts us in like the upper half of tier 3. The first thing I want to maybe just reiterate here, because I know some of you are going to be commenting about it, is the whole Spirit Shroud on a ranged character thing. Again, the issue is solved in one of 2 ways. Grab haste, grab a heavy crossbow, and great weapon master, and your damage is about the same. At least until we got Spirit Shroud upcasting at the 5th level and beyond, which didn't happen for us until level 13, right? But also, again, with potent magic weapons, which I have to believe that by late tier 2 of play and beyond, most of us are going to have, like I said, haste takes the lead. Because yeah, if you've got even a hand crossbow that's like a +1 and does an extra d6 of damage every hit, or better, right? Haste starts looking a lot better by comparison. And if you're not as worried about scaling your spell slots for Spirit Shroud, Bard then becomes less important. Whispers is still fun, it brings some extra damage, and I like the support and the utility from Bard, but you could go Rogue for scaling sneak attack damage, or Fighter for action surge and maybe like a little extra damage from Battle Master, or heck, both. So just keep those things in mind as you're playing the character. In the end, I'm not too worried about having to close within 10 feet on this build, with a free mount and or great move speed ourselves, but if it bothers you, make a different choice. And if you still want to complain about it in the comments, that's fine. The algorithm loves that. Beyond that issue though, is the build good? I think so, yeah. But as always, that depends a lot on what you're hoping to get out of it, right? If you're looking for a massive damage dealer that's dual wielding hand crossbows, no, it's not necessarily going to be that. Though, as always, I'd urge you to keep in mind that I'm comparing the damage this build does to other builds I've made that are optimized for damage, right? I mean, 80 damage a round for a character who I'd describe as a support damage hybrid? That's pretty dang solid in my book. And also, maybe we shouldn't be comparing ranged weapon users to all other DPR builds in 5.5, you know? I have half a mind to start giving them their own tab in the spreadsheets. Because if we just compare this build to other ranged weapon users that I've done so far, we're kind of middle of the pack, which is better than I thought we'd be, honestly. The only really hard-hitting ranged weapon user I've built for 5.5 so far is the Archer Fae Warlock. Right up there, yeah. Dang Warlocks, stealing all the martial and half-caster glory as usual. But you know what that build wasn't doing? At all. Protecting their allies with auras, healing them back to full health between combat encounters, saving their bacon when they go unconscious in a fight, running back and forth on their mount or with their own super speed, giving 10-minute short rests, buffing and inspiring allies and curing them of their ailments, all while doing some respectable damage at the same time. Come on, this is the best sheriff or CIA agent ever. And I, for one, would be thrilled to have them in my party. So, I hope you enjoyed the build. That's it for the week. Thanks for watching. I love you. I appreciate all that you do for me, for the channel. I really hope that you have a great day and a fantastic week. And if you don't, please don't give up. Hang in there, okay? You can do it. I hope that you'll do good and that you'll be kind and that I see you again very soon. But until then, take care. Bye. Everybody knows that the world is full of stupid people. So meet me at the mission at midnight. We'll divvy up there. Bow, 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 bow. Everybody knows that the world is full of stupid people. But I got the pistol, so I'll keep the pesos. Yeah, and that seems fair. Oh, the refreshments. So if you're looking for like a alt rock late 90s band with like just a smidgen of like a country influence kinda, that's your band. They're really good. I really loved their first album especially. It's mostly kind of lighthearted stuff, I think. Seems like half of their songs are about being like a desperado in Mexico. So it felt fitting for the video today. Hey Siri, every week. it like top of bot. For overall damage, so we're less using guess we don't need our speed.